One of the things we have talked about in this post Brexit world that we now live in is the matter of regulations. Because you can just have a regulation, but without action, without enforcement, without punishment, a regulation is just words on a paper. And it is part of the government's responsibility to enforce regulation. Massively so. And one of the things we have talked about on this channel quite a few times is, of course, the fact that since 2020, we have kicked the can down the road 6 times for checks on goods coming into the UK. Like currently, you can bring in goods into the UK from the EU. There is no checking. This has, to no one's surprise, by the way, so don't be shocked. To no one's surprise, smuggling has increased. And because products, including food products, have not been checked, we have actually seen a big outbreak in salmonella linked to Polish eggs. Now, why is that? Well, here in the UK, we have a ban on battery farming of chickens. That's not the same throughout all the EU. It is not an EU-wide regulation. But when we're in the single market, it was something we could control internally. We could say to the EU, this is our rules, this is our regulation, and it was all respected. We followed each other's equivalent rules, even when we're in the single market, even if those rules, like our battery farming, was higher than the current EU rules, other countries were expected to follow those rules. Now, what happens? We're not in the EU anymore. We, the EU, even though we do have an equivalency agreement, it's up to us to really enforce those rules. It's not on the EU to enforce those rules because remember, these are goods coming into the UK. The government and the especially DEFRA here is expected to enforce those rules. And of course, what has happened? It's not happened at all. And this becomes even more worrying when you consider that you've got the Pacific Partnership kicking in, where you've got thousands more of battery farmed chickens and eggs coming from Mexico and even Canada as well. And what happens then to your domestic producers? Well, quite frankly, free range chicken farmers in the UK cannot compete. And remember, 1999, there has been since then a wide consensus by the British public to ban battery farming of chickens. That is something that we have done. That is something we have passed. It's currently the law of the land. But of course, what's happened? Brexit happened. And it is on the UK to enforce those rules. And if they are not enforcing imports from the EU for battery farming, particularly in this case, we have had, as I pointed out, the big salmonella outbreak linked to Polish eggs. And most eggs should be carrying the British Lion stamp. And that's like, the mark of quality approval. So if you are worried about this, when you do go to buy eggs, make sure your eggs have that Lion stamp on. Or else otherwise, well, you could be buying battery farmed eggs from, in this case, Poland, Hungary, Italy, or soon, probably Mexico and Canada. And of course, the farmers' unions are up in arms about this. Quite rightly so. Hey, I thought Brexit was all meant to be about, supporting British farming guys, supporting us. Why aren't you supporting us? You've allowed all these cheap imports. The farming union, the NHF, National Union of Farmers, absolutely in outrage about this. Where's Marie Batter's quote here? So yeah, Marie Bannis, the president of the National Farmers Union, said that she was absolutely staggered by the import figures for the first 8 months of just 2023, saying, when medical advice is to eat British lion eggs stamped to show that they have been produced in accordance with the code of practice, why on earth would they be importing eggs produced to standards that would be illegal in the UK, she asked. It raises serious questions as to whether the government is actually checking food imports, given the ongoing delay in the border targeting operation model. And then Gary Ford, the deputy executive of the British Egg Industry Council, said, echoed her concerns, saying it was very disappointing to see imports growing, particularly at a time when British producers have been struggling due to poor returns. It is also very concerning for customers, with a recent report showing that there's a very large salmonella outbreak earlier this year that should link to Polish eggs. So this is, all on us, this is because of Brexit. And it isn't the fault of, those Poles not, following their own regulations, sending those eggs here. No, they were following their own rules and regulations. It is on us to do this. One of the things we have constantly warned about is the fact that when we left the EU, we left all these institutions along with it. And that essentially, think of them as, in the simplest ways, the egg police. Well, when we're in the EU, we had a load of egg police. But now, to try and maintain that same level of egg police, the Brexiteers, and again, the current government, decided we ain't going to replicate those egg police. We're not going to give them the same funding. We're not going to give them the same level of staffing that is needed to check these regulations. Whoopsie doodle. Honestly, this just goes to show you how bad the government is screwing up on this. And bear in mind, this affects UK customers and, of course, ultimately, UK chicken farmers and egg producers, because we are now importing eggs that can be made for far cheaper price, as we've seen importing in large volumes. What's the government doing about it? Nothing. Because to actually admit that there is a problem would actually have to admit, first of all, that there is a problem in their Brexit. And that is exactly where this problem is. It is Brexit. It is because we Brexited. We're no longer in the EU, so we're no longer part of these agencies. The government has not been checking food at the border. So instead of taking back control of our border, it has lost control of the border. It has not created, retained, or improved these regulatory bodies that, again, we left and that should be here to protect us against things like this. And yet we've just signed, really worryingly, as I always make out, the Pacific Partnership deal, or the Trans-Pacific something deal, whatever it is, the CCTPP, the Comprehensive Trade Pacific Partnership, whatever it is. But we'll just call it the Pacific Partnership deal. It's easier. In that deal, we've said it time and time again. The EU is about equivalency. Everyone starts here. And then if you want to go up, you can do. But everyone respects your equivalency. The Pacific Partnership is not about that. We might be up here. Another country might be down here. Because we are in that deal, because we have signed it, we must accept their lower level of products. Even though, as it points out in the article, production of eggs to the standard, if they were done in the UK, would be illegal. The farmers and people involved in the selling of this would be arrested and fined and would lose their license to sell these products. You can do nothing because we've signed this trade deal. And the more worrying one, of course, is when those Mexico and Canada deals as well potentially look like they're coming online. Once again, all these trade deals are completely and utterly useless. Because as we always said, the Brexiteers had no idea about world trade, international trade when it comes to it. And this whole farce in eggs just shows how much egg they have on their face. Again, because there's plenty more egg on their face, not just this. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.